Mr. President, the Russian president has just recognized the independence of South Ossetia. What does it mean? What does this decision mean for the Ossetian people and for you personally?
What kind of feelings can a man have if he has devoted his whole life to make sure his people gains independence? Of course, my heart is overwhelmed with feelings and emotions, but I think we still have a lot of things to do. We are very thankful to Russia, especially to its president Dmitry Medvedev and Prime Minister Vladimir Putin, as well as to the whole people of Russia who gave a helping hand at this hard moment. Now we have to rebuild the devastated Ossetian towns and villages after Georgia brutally razed them to the ground. We need to build houses and restore the infrastructure of the whole of South Ossetia. In this process, Russia also holds a leading role. We are extremely grateful for all this help that Russia provides. And of course, we are thankful to Russia for being the first of the international community to recognize the call for independence of the Republic of South Ossetia.
Do you think that South Ossetia and Abkhazia will be recognized by the international community as well?
Of course, we are waiting for other countries, including Europe, to recognize the independence of South Ossetia. Because if you don't come from the grounds of double standards or geopolitical interests, but if you base it on international law and legal political reasons, then both South Ossetia and Abkhazia are worthy of being recognized, and not just by Russia, but by the whole of the international community.
So how do you see South Ossetian future? Are you planning to unite with North Ossetia?
The fact that Russia recognizes South Ossetia does not exhaust the matter. We need to think about the future. We need to rebuild South Ossetia, to raise it from ruins after the Georgian aggression. And of course, there has been a great desire on the part of the South Ossetian people to integrate into the Russian Federation, but that depends on Russia. As for us, we need to strengthen our independence, our sovereignty.
Did the decision on Kosovo have any significant impact on the South Ossetian decision?
We addressed the international community much earlier than Kosovo. We have this historical experience. We had a state of our own, the Great Alania. If to compare it with Kosovo, even during Soviet times, we had all the fundamental features of an independent state, while Kosovo was created artificially. We can only say that Kosovo's existence and recognition is the result of the politics of double standards over the real state of things and over the norms of international law. What happened today is a triumph of common sense in the sphere of the international law.
Now that you've been recognized by Russia, how do you plan to build your relations with Georgia in the future?
We will have no relationship with the current criminal administration of Georgia. That does not refer to the Georgian people as a whole. We are not at war with the Georgian people. I am sending my condolences to the Georgians who lost their loved ones, their sons and husbands during the conflict Saakashvili threw them into. It's a tragedy of the Georgian people as well. We do not have any bad feelings towards the Georgian people, since they themselves became hostage of this criminal and unwise politics led by Saakashvili. We will build neighboring relations with the Georgian people, and we will talk to them as equals. There will be no older brother, younger brother situation anymore. We are equal now. We are recognized. We will build good, friendly, neighboring economic and cultural relations with Georgia, now already as equals.
Now, U.S. President George Bush appealed to the Russian president not to recognize South Ossetia, and he has sent his deputy Dick Cheney to Georgia to express U.S. support for Georgia. Now, how do you think Georgia will respond to this decision for independence?
We're not at all interested in Georgia's reaction because today's Georgia is governed by international criminals. We do not want to oppose the Georgian people, even despite they caused us so much pain and suffering. I think, though, that they share responsibility for the genocide of the South Ossetian people with the U.S. who has armed Georgia. Many times we tried to attract attention of the international community to the fact that Georgia has turned into a most demilitarized country in the post-Soviet territory. But instead of any reaction, we kept seeing Georgia getting more and more arms. So everyone who supplied the arms now bear responsibility for the genocide of the Ossetian people, and that's the United States first and most.
Now, are you afraid of further escalation of relations with Georgia?
You know, nobody reacts to the word "be afraid of" in South Ossetia anymore. We've got rid of our fear long ago. We have lived in this state for 18 years by now. We realize the seriousness of the situation, but we are ready for any turn of events. We are protecting our land, and the fact that a small people is struggling for independence is more of humanitarian than a political issue. I want to address those Western leaders that seek to satisfy their geopolitical interests, who say they cannot accept the fact of genocide because there has not been enough bloodshed. I wonder how much more blood they want to see shed if we are already so few. How many more people do Georgian soldiers have to kill for the Western leaders to be able to call it genocide?
Do you think South Ossetia would strive for its independence if Georgia hasn't been a close ally of the United States?
We have been struggling for it for very long, since the moment of the artificial separation of the Ossetian people in 1922. If it was not so obvious before, it was because we were part of one bigger union and under the protection of Russia, as well as Georgia itself. Then Georgia decided to separate. Ossetians rebelled because they didn't want to find themselves part of different countries. So Ossetians made a statement that they did not want to be part of the democratic Georgia, instead wanted to stay together with the North Ossetia as a part of Russia. That caused the first wave of genocide.
Now, Russia itself is a federation. Do you think that the decision made by South Ossetia and Abkhazia, the strive for independence, would somehow have a negative impact on Russia itself and will endanger Russia?
I totally exclude such a scenario. There have been attempts to divide Russia when it was weak. Even the powers that tried today to invade Abkhazia in South Ossetia, that was not even Georgia, not Saakashvili. He is just a puppet. Those powers tried to steal the North Caucasus from Russia. This plan does exist. It was worked out overseas. We know about it. And the fact is, South Ossetia and Abkhazia survived the pressure and united people in the Caucasus region. Unlike Georgia, Russia has created very favorable conditions for national minorities so that they kept their language and culture. This is what we were deprived of.